What's up, everyone? I'm here to do a review slash discussion on the latest chapter of Attack on Titan that was just released. This week's chapter is chapter 59, and it's amazing to think that it's only on chapter 59. It feels like it's chapter 150. Technically it is, because these chapters are about almost 2 times longer than the typical manga chapters are. They're about 30 to 40 pages long. But so much has happened, especially when I watched the anime for the first 30 chapters or so. Then I switched to a manga because I couldn't wait, similar to Hunter x Hunter. And so, especially when watching anime, they like to extend the manga chapters. They can make one manga chapter into like 3 or 4 episodes with all the scenery and the music sometimes. So it makes it seem like it's been forever. Anyhow, this chapter honestly was quite interesting. There's so much to be said here. Obviously, this author's a genius in how he sets up these dramatic cliffhangers and these sort of surprises and all this conspiracy. And obviously, what he does best is surprising you by either revealing a new character or revealing a new plot twist, such as what happened last chapter or the chapter before, where Levy's sort of mentor from decades ago sort of shows up again, having been somehow alive and somehow not killed, and somehow joined the faction that he was against, and not revealing why he joined it, and also trying to kill Levy. So this author is a master of almost every other chapter throwing in this huge plot twister that just warps your mind. Obviously, as I'll show in this chapter, he's not perfect in it, because when you really think about these sort of things, it can get very deep, and he shows a bit of naivety in making certain things unrealistic, which is one of my pet peeves. So I'm actually going to do a play-by-play. If you've seen my previous videos, you know what this is. Basically, I have the chapter here, and I've already read it, but I'm going to go through it and go through it page by page, briefly skimming it and covering the main points I want to address in this chapter that you may have missed, or something interesting to remark on. So it starts off with basically civilians and reporters remarking on a situation. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Survey Corps, because they, as far as I can tell, seem to be the good guys. And so you see like these reporters doing their thing. You see like the head chief sort of grabbing the paper out of the newbie's hands and saying, "Oh, don't worry, we're not going to report on anything in the Central Military Police." From everything I've seen so far, I find that somewhat retarded, in the fact that shouldn't they, as the civilians, know at this point to be even more cautious than that, given all the references in the manga so far and the anime to how anyone who even speaks out or mutters conspiracy is literally snuffed out. They just disappear the next day by the military police. They're killed by the military police, or just abducted. But you know, I'm actually somewhat excited about this, and I'm very happy for this, because basically, based on the inquiries by the reporter and how this military police member talks, it seems that both parties are starting to get suspicious of the military police. In fact, this whole chapter seems to be geared towards how some people, not everyone, but some people are starting to question the military police and say, hey, maybe they're the bad guys, not the Survey Corps. And obviously this military police member, obviously there's apparently 2 factions of the MP. The central faction, which knows more and is willing to do more to stomp out any sort of backlash, sort of how communists stomp out any sort of conspiracists. but he starts to think about it, and he's thinking about how peculiar it is that the new 3D gear is specifically made to kill humans. And when I thought about it, I realized that it's specifically made to kill people who use the old 3D gear. Why? Because they don't need that fancy gear to jump around and fly across all these buildings to kill normal civilians. They need it to kill other people with 3D gear. So yeah, this man remarks on how peculiar it is that it was hidden and secretly developed, and how it's definitely specifically designed, you know, with the guns attached to the gear itself to kill those with 3D gear already. And he remarks on how maybe this will be potentially used on them. And now we see Armand here. He's throwing up and stuff because of what happened recently. It was revealed that during that scenario from before, he was the one who manned up and shot this MP, central MP person who was about to kill one of their comrades, and Armand literally shot him in the head, which was crazy. And obviously, because he's somewhat sympathetic and childlike, and it's tough for a human to do such a thing, he's throwing up because he killed another human being and so forth. And then here's the thing I don't understand. Well, I understand it, but I want to talk about it. Basically, it's revealed that the only reason that Armand was able to kill this person, it seems like it was a girl, was because she hesitated herself. And what that implies to the reader, not so much the people talking about it, is that this female hesitated. And because she hesitated, it means that maybe she doesn't know as much as the head honchos at the central government knows, which is somewhat obvious, but also at the same time it clears things up, because there was always that mystery behind it. Do the central members of the MP know everything, or at least enough to know that know about exactly why they're doing such things? And this hesitation proves that at least these members don't know that much, and on top of that, it implies that these are just kids, maybe not kids, but people who don't completely understand what's going on, and slash or are not fully behind their cause. Because if they knew enough, and slash or they were fully behind their cause, she would have shot. She would have pulled the trigger immediately, which implies that, long story short, it implies that this female and the other members sent to kill these Survey Corps members don't really know what's going on, or if they do know what's going on, they're not fully behind it. So potentially, again, my theory, as remarked before in previous videos, is that this whole thing potentially is because they're engineering and farming these titans from actual prior human beings from villages out in the open, and the whole purpose is to keep them confined in this castle-like territory. Why? For whatever reason. Maybe there's something outside beyond these titans that they don't want them to find out about. Who knows? And obviously, you know, I read Hunter x Hunter, so if anyone's caught up with the series, you guys know what I'm talking about, and you can draw the similarities between the two series. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's there. Again, Hunter x Hunter, great series. Wait, not Hunter x Hunter. Claymore is the one I'm talking about. Claymore, great series. You can draw the parallels and similarities if you've gotten to the latest chapter of Claymore. But moving on from that, that's my theory, and I think it makes complete sense, because you've got the that one era where a lot of the outer walls were destroyed and a lot of the population was killed. That affirms what my theory, because it equates to population control, because they can't just keep growing and reproducing and still be confined in those walls. So they had to introduce the Titans to keep the population down, and the whole purpose is to keep them confined and ignorant of what's going on outside of these walls and beyond these Titans. Who knows what that is? It hasn't been revealed. I don't think the author has decided himself. He's still sort of thinking about it. And so ultimately, I think a lot of this fighting will end up with Levi and Survey Corps finally getting the answer, but realizing, hey, maybe, it's one of those things, somewhat like the film Watchmen, when at the end of the day, spoiler alert, you realize, and it's similar to a lot of films or books out there, you realize that the whole purpose of this was for the greater good of the majority of the population. You kill millions to save billions, that sort of effect. And you have to, for whatever reason, keep the population, or at least the majority of them, ignorant and stupid, and keep them under control in order to benefit them in the long run. Similar to the book The Giver and a lot of dystopian or utopian futuristic books out there. Anyhow, moving on, we're on page 15 of this chapter. I'm doing my play-by-play. And Levi, obviously, Levi's character and personality has been defined a long time ago, and what the author does a good job of is sort of exercising it and sort of showing his personality and how he would respond. He responds in these panels and pages exactly how I thought he would, and it just reaffirms his personality, which I like very much. He's someone who's young, but at the same time, very savvy, very street smart. He understands, he's experienced a lot more of the world and realized the world is a lot more of a cooler, darker, disgusting place where it's not all flowers and roses and there's not always a good answer, and there's a lot of gray areas and it's not all black and white, good and bad. And he's realized all this, and he's obviously done a lot of stuff. He's dirtied his hands, and he's definitely the leader despite being so young. He's probably the strongest person in the whole series in terms of using 3D maneuvering gear. And Mikasa's slightly behind him, but he's definitely the best at using the gear, as demonstrated when he first fought Annie in Titan form. And on top of that, like literally his 3D maneuvering gear techniques are on a different level. He uses a unique sort of technique where he spins his whole body and pretty much becomes a sort of whirling circle, and then he sticks out his blade and just cuts people out with that. I honestly don't understand the whole thing with the cape or the cloak, because I feel like that, like in reality, that would hinder him, and you can't really spin like that well with that cape, and it just causes a lot of problems. But there you go. And so, as you can tell, I very much like Levi as a character, as his personality. He's very much like me in a lot of ways. And moving on, we get to this scene. These two members, we don't know who they are, but obviously the girl, I don't like the girl. I think her personality was set up so that the readers don't like her, but I feel like some readers are naive or may somewhat like the girls. But if you really read the dialogue, okay, so first off, these two are just like foot soldiers of the MP. They're like a new faction, just trained. Apparently they're like pumping out new factions every year or every month. They're training new soldiers. Where are they getting all these people? I don't know, because from my perspective, it feels like the population's gone down to like very little based off all the casualties and so forth. But there you have it. The girls, long story short, complaining and saying how bad the Survey Corps is, and the man is sort of playing the devil's advocate. He's saying how hey, it wasn't that bad. That whole fight in the Stohes district with the two Titans ended up rooting out a Titan in hiding, and they succeeded in subduing it and preventing the wall from being destroyed. And I was surprised because I thought the civilians were sort of censored from knowing that. But apparently at least the MP, even the foot soldiers, know this. And if the foot soldiers know this, I don't understand why this girl is whining about this, but there she goes. She's whining about it, saying how apparently her roommate, which was Annie, was literally missing, and she's saying how all the casualties and so forth wasn't worth that, blah blah blah, complaining about that. I just think from a realistic perspective, I think even the general population would be more sympathetic towards the Survey Corps. Maybe not. Maybe depending on how many casualties were killed, they may be like, oh, it wasn't worth it. So what? We found a Titan who's in hiding. All we've pretty much learned from that is that they can hide, and I think it's unrealistic in the sense that it would change how the population would think about it. They'd probably be a lot more suspicious about everyone they made contact with. As of so far, we haven't really seen that. It seems like the civilians, treat other civilians normally as before, but from our perspective, it seems like they would be a lot more suspicious of civilians and MP and Survey Corps members because of that revelation that humans can transform into Titans and vice versa. But maybe it's because the central government censored that information from the population. Anyhow, we see something where it seems like Armand was caught by his MP. Turns out, there you go again, Levy is not stupid. Thank God for Levy. He's obviously a tactical genius. There have been so many sort of dramatic situations where you think, oh crap, Levy screwed himself over, or the Survey Corps has screwed himself over, which has been replaced or altered by, hey, gotcha, the Survey Corps and Levy are geniuses, and they thought ahead of the time. Long story short, it seems like it just sort of proves that Levy is a king. And why are they doing this? Obviously, they need to keep restocking their supplies of 3D maneuvering gear and weapons, so they have to keep abducting these sort of people. When I thought about this, I realized that this can't keep going on, because long story short, if he just keeps abducting these people, the CP, which has smarter people in it at the top, will realize it and play a game backwards to this, where realizing that Levy sort of baits out these MP members to get their gear, they will send out bait in terms of seemingly naive CP members to lure out Levy, luring out members to restock supplies. It's sort of like chess, where you think yet another move ahead of that person, and it's something that really happens in tactical warfare, which is kind of scary. So I'm hoping Levy sees that. I'm sure the author somewhat understands this in the future, which will end up with the author maybe Levy will think one step up ahead of this when this happens, and they try and restock and they get lured out. Hopefully you guys can follow my train of thought. And finally, what ends up happening here is Levy does this sort of, what I find very admirable, very cool, sort of unspoken dialogue, unspoken discussion, and basically they test these two members, and at least the male passed the test, and he's worthy of joining the Survey Corps. So now we have a new member of the Survey Corps. Maybe this is how the cast will constantly be replenished. When old members die, new members will be replenished and join from the MP, like in this chapter. I think I have to tilt my hat to this whole series, because there have been many manga series and anime series which are based on manga series that I've watched and read so far, where the authors are just too much of a pussy to kill even like a minor character. And there'll be scenarios where cliffhangers where, oh, it looks like they finally killed these members, or it seems like a supporting character, or maybe even a lead character is killed, and then in the next chapter the cliffhanger ends and they survived, or 10 chapters later they survived. These authors are too cowardly to kill any of the main cast, and I'm just going to name a few: cough cough, Bleach, Toriko. You know who I'm talking about if you've seen the latest chapters of those. So I have to tip my hat off for that. Anyhow, though, again, Attack on Titan, it hasn't killed any lead characters. It kind of has, but at the same time, they've been more supporting characters. I still very much like it. There's definitely death of at least somewhat major characters in the series, which I find it's very tough to do. Harry Potter did it, and it's definitely something that you have to really man up and do, because you don't want to kill your main characters as an author. It's just hard to part with. Anyhow, death is something in most literature that's hard for the author to do, because it sort of reveals a new thing. A lot of authors want to stay in this sort of flowers and roses world, but in reality we all know that good things happen to bad people. Finally, though, that literally ends the series, and they end up at the Central MP headquarters, I believe. And the test in itself, I just found it, like before, when they tested these two members, more so testing the male member, it just seems so obvious and staged. Like, he wouldn't just slip on a rock and drop his knife. That just seems so staged, in my opinion. Obviously, it was a test. In my opinion, though, the female, I don't trust her. I don't think she should join the Survey Corps. I think she's her personality, her beliefs, her perceptions, her opinions, she's going to either backstab the Survey Corps if they allow her to join. Like, we can't tell from this chapter, but if she does join, she is going to screw them over. I don't like her attitude, her perspectives, her opinions, her beliefs, how she thinks. It seems like she's still allied with the MP and doesn't completely agree with it. The only reason we can tell that potentially she joined as well is the dialogue from the last page, which reads, "We only arrived so quickly thanks to those two." And so potentially we have two new members to the Survey Corps. I don't like the girl. I don't think she should join. She's going to backstab the Survey Corps eventually. The guy, I kind of like the guy, and I'm rooting for the guy. But the Survey Corps needs new members. I don't really like the whole idea of them dwindling and adding new members. It's realistic that they're dwindling because casualties need to happen. But I hope this constant cycle of replenishing from the MP doesn't happen. We don't need a whole new cast. I want to see the plot progress. But as of this chapter, it seems like Levy is almost lost. If I was Levy, I would be lost. I'm like, what can we do at this point? We've lost our two main members, our vital members. They've been lost as hostages, and literally Levy's like hanging on a single rope now. He's like, I don't know what else to do but go to the Central MP compound and figure out what the heck's going on. And I honestly obviously he's gonna come up with some grandmaster genius plan because he is Levy. But he definitely needs to do something, because literally, he doesn't know what else to do. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he figures out what's going to happen and figure out the whole truth behind this whole conspiracy. As for Annie, in the last few chapters, it was revealed that Annie, they somehow managed to get to her. How? Who knows? It feels like she could have frozen herself in eternity in that diamond form. How, did she kill herself doing that? We don't know. Apparently she survived for a long time without food or water while frozen in the diamond form, and somehow unfroze herself for whatever reason and was interrogated. It doesn't really make sense. It was revealed that she was interrogated and tortured and so forth since then, which is the right thing to do because we want to find out more about that. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense because it's also revealed that the Central MP are in on it, and it's almost implied that they're on the same side as Annie, being that sort of, her being that transforming Titan on the inside, obviously hiding in the MP, part of the whole conspiracy. And it seems as of so far that the Central MP are the inner workings of the Central MP are also behind the whole conspiracy. So it doesn't really make sense why they're interrogating her. Maybe the outer MP are interrogating her, and apparently Annie's been tortured beyond belief. Has she revealed anything? I doubt she has, being the kind of person she is. But long story short, it's very interesting, and obviously, I honestly want to find out what's going to happen. Obviously, it won't happen. They won't tell us for the longest time, and more so than that, I think the biggest thing is screw all the stuff that's happening. When will they finally get Eren to the basement of his dad's house? Because that will reveal everything. It's funny because this whole thing started with that, and I think Eren's dad sort of thought he would be able to reveal that to his son before all this sort of thing, all this sort of stuff happened, but we don't know. At the same time, we haven't seen Eren's dad for a while, ever since that event, and it seems like he understands what's happening, so it's kind of like in no rush. He's pretty much telling Eren to go there, and he hasn't really stayed in contact since then. Eren's dad himself, I don't know what's going on with him. He's sort of like, I think he may be in on it himself or something else, or maybe like a contrarian, or like someone who's on the outside, who's figured it out, or doing something along the lines, or maybe one of the scientists who has helped the government manufacture this human to Titan serum, and now he sort of decided to reveal it to his son. But at the same time, like, we don't know what's going on. Maybe his son was supposed to eventually become one of these people, but no. I feel like Eren's dad ultimately decided to. He was one of the scientists who helped research and develop the serum to be able to transform from human to Titan, so that they could keep this conspiracy on the wrap.